What's the good word, y'all? Welcome to New York Jets Syndicate channel. It's your boy DKB here. So ahead of our season debut versus the Buffalo Bills, Nathaniel Hackett, he's been talked about in more so a negative temperament than anything else due to the way his Broncos tenure as head coach ended. But again, as we pointed out plenty of times, when you get into his offensive coordinator roles, you actually walk away pretty excited about what this New York Jets offense will look like, especially considering coaching staff he's been able to build around him. So it happens to be lucky for us that he gets a chance to kind of go back to his roots in Green Bay with one of the most dynamic and elite wide receiver quarterback pairings, at least we expect it to be, in Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. Obviously, with the Packers, he had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae, and Garrett Wilson seems to be chosen as the guy to kind of proceed Devontae Adams in the NFL as one of those top tier guys year in and year out. Now, the expectations are extremely high on these two, uh, almost to a ridiculous degree, right? A lot of people have the Super Bowl expectations from us, but even without that, I would say that you would still see these kind of conversations present. So it's nice that Nathaniel Hackett kind of has a strong pair of legs to lean on, right? You mix that up with the fact that he also gets a running back pairing that could be one of the best in the league as well. There's really no excuses for him to be able to go out here and put together great performances on a weekly basis. But to get back into Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, we've seen him already kind of speak to the greatness that is Garrett Wilson from what we've seen so far. Speaking about his amazing body control, his ability to not only beat his defenders at the line of scrimmage, but beat them after the catch point. And then the way that he's also able to go out there and make extremely difficult plays in traffic. And just but judging by what you'd have to have seen last year between Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, Chris Struvler throwing him the ball, he didn't have anybody that had consistent accuracy or a way to consistently manipulate and beat a defense, and now he does. So that's a part of this major excitement with a guy like Garrett Wilson. So obviously, as we mentioned, the four quarterbacks that he had last year were not great, right? Aaron Rodgers is going to directly be a huge influx in talent for this New York Jets roster. And we've already seen in the preseason games, we've seen in training camp, Aaron Rodgers' ability to get free plays, right? That is going to help Garrett Wilson tremendously because you essentially you're getting that free play, right? Worst case scenario, the ball's essentially called dead. It doesn't matter if a takeaway happens. This is where Garrett Wilson may potentially be able to thrive or force the issue, right? Maybe you add on a pass interference penalty as you're targeting a guy like Wilson deep. But keep in mind, Garrett Wilson has already looked like a top 10 guy. At this point, we're looking for him to just solidify being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in terms of being, a top three, top five style player. But there's a lot to build off with Garrett Wilson. 1,103 yards last year, 4 touchdowns, 83 receptions, which is crazy. 14 contested catches of those 83 receptions, and 56 of them went for first down. So he's been able to excel in essentially every area, right? The deep passing has been his biggest detriment, but given the four quarterbacks we mentioned throwing him the ball, that makes plenty of sense. So, from what we're seeing so far, he's a chain mover. He can make the big play. He can make plays after the catch with the rack that he's been able to rack up. And the biggest difference between Aaron Rodgers and what he was dealing with last year was that he led the league. Excuse me. He was one of the players leading the league. He had the fourth most passes that were incomplete sent his way that were due to the quarterback having an issue, right? 24 incomplete passes. Imagine Garrett Wilson just hauling in 12 more of those. Imagine taking those plays out, the numerous other touchdowns and big plays that Garrett Wilson should have had that we couldn't take advantage of because Zach Wilson's accuracy, Joe Flacco's dependency on eyeing his receiver down, Mike White just having sporadic play in general. And then we know what Chris Strevler and his limitations looked like. So I'm very, very excited. We've seen Garrett Wilson also be able to dominate man coverage and zone coverage. Ranking as one of the best guys against man and looking very respectable, is still a top half receiver essentially in zone coverage. So if I'm Nathaniel Hackett, and from what we've seen from the preseason game, Aaron Rodgers threw 8 or 9 passes. Um, 3 or 4 of those, specifically 3 of them, Garrett Wilson caught all the passes that went his way. 3 of those immediately went to Garrett Wilson. We've seen all throughout training camp that he's earned Aaron Rodgers' trust early, and he's made it pretty much his duty to make sure that Garrett Wilson is going to be fed consistently for the majority of this season. So who knows what kind of numbers that we're looking at right now. I would probably say 1,500 plus yards isn't out of the question whatsoever. I wouldn't be surprised if we even see Garrett Wilson flirt with a couple 200-yard games. So I don't know. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Who may end up being I don't think there's going to be a more important player to this New York Jets offense outside of these two. Even with us leaning on the running back game, this offense is going to function through Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers' ability to utilize him to cut up a lot of these defenses. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.